Hi, I'm Frances Mensah Williams. I'm the author of the novel From Pasta to Pigfoot. From Pasta to Pigfoot is a novel which follows the adventures of a young woman called Faye Bonsu, who is a Ghanaian-born but London-brought-up woman. She, to be perfectly honest, is a little bit under-challenged, shall we say, in her choice of career, and also feels rather conflicted about her culture. Through a series of incidents relating to her less than successful boyfriend and relationship with her less than successful boyfriend, Faye gets the opportunity to travel to Ghana. And the bulk of the story is set in Ghana, and it's where Faye meets a lot of people, she learns a lot about her culture, and she learns a lot about herself. I was inspired to write From Pasta to Pigfoot when I was living in Ghana myself. Now, although I was nothing like Faye and I had a strong knowledge of the country, what I did wonder was how would it be for someone who was coming from England, having grown up there, to come to a country like Ghana and really to see what she recognized as parts of her culture and what she didn't, and how that impacted on herself and her own perception of who she was. And so for me, that was really the starting point for Faye's character. And over time, her character developed and her story developed until it became one not just about culture, but also about personal development and what she learned about herself on this journey. I actually started the book when I was living in Ghana, so I was right in the heart of it. Having said that, I did do research, and I think you have to when you're tackling a subject which is about introducing somebody to a country and a culture that is totally new to them. For me, I think apart from some rigorous research into some aspects of Ashanti tradition particularly, I think the most important research for me was going to visit the slave fort in Cape Coast. In fact, both castles, Cape Coast and Elmina castles, and that was a really, really powerful experience. It's written about in the book When Faye Goes, and that is a direct response perhaps to how I felt when I went, and just the power and the somberness of those sites, which really take you back to those times and to some of the darkest parts of our history and our heritage. I would say the first draft of the book probably took about 3 months, but that was just really the first draft. It was a book and a story that sat for a long time, and I would come back to it occasionally and update it and rethink it and redevelop some aspects of it. But the core of the story probably took about 3 months when I was off work and at home, and just decided this was it. The story had been bubbling in my brain for a while and I wanted to put it down. I have been asked so many times, is this an autobiography? It really is not, and part of me feels a little bit conflicted in the sense that, yes, we all put a little bit of something of ourselves into what we write. You base your creativity on what you know, what you see, but mostly, I hope, in terms of novel writing, on what you imagine. And I wish we had more books about people that are like ourselves, because I think that would stop that question. I sometimes say to people, you don't ask J.K. Rowling if Harry Potter is autobiographical. And yet there's something about when we talk about people who are similar to ourselves in terms of their background and so on, that it's assumed it's autobiographical. And yet we have a wealth of stories. Every single one of us, people like ourselves, people of African origin, Caribbean origin, living and growing up in the UK, we all have different stories. But because those stories don't get told, when you do get a story that gets told, it's immediately assumed it must be your story. I'm not Faye. Faye's personality and character is very different to mine, and her story is very different to mine. But obviously, as someone growing up, as a Ghanaian growing up in the UK predominantly, some of the experiences, some of the issues, I think would be common to many of us. Just those times when no one's interrupting and you can just go into that world and just write down what those characters are saying, because that's how, for me, writing works. It's like watching a movie. I'm just watching these characters do what they do, which is why, you start off thinking you know what the story is going to be, and you start off planning the storyline, and it just goes its own way, because the characters take over and they do what's true to them, and the things that happen to them are a consequence of their characters and what's true to those characters. So it's always a fascinating experience, but the best bit is just being left alone to write. I don't think her identity crisis is immediately resolved when she gets to Ghana. I think she at times finds that she is slipping from one paradigm to another. There's a point at which she suddenly realizes, when she's talking about home, she's not talking about the UK anymore. And when she's thinking about home, she's not thinking about the UK anymore. There are moments when she feels very much at home and she feels like she's within a family and her family. There are moments when she's also made to feel an outsider, and some of those moments occur, and again food is a big metaphor for some of those moments, when she either feels alienated because of comments made by someone else, or she feels alienated because she doesn't feel comfortable with a particular dish. I think the sense of identity is something she slips in and out of, and I think that's probably true, because there are times when we feel very aligned to where we've grown up and very comfortable there, and there are times when we feel emotionally very aligned to where we come from. And I think when people land in Ghana, if you've been living in Ghana or come from Ghana, from the past, there is something about that moment when you get out of the plane that you just take a deep breath and you just feel, I'm home. And you just feel like you belong. You look around and there are people who physically look like you. And I think it's very hard for people who don't know what it's like to be a minority to understand how powerful it is to look around and see yourself reflected in so many people's faces, so that you don't stand out in that way. Because I think when you live in a society where you stand out visibly, you become aware of it, but it's almost like your norm every day. So you step out and you just automatically put on this armor of how you need to be in order not to be bothered by the fact that you don't see yourself surrounded by people every day. You need to put a certain mindset into your thinking not to be bothered. So when you walk into a strange restaurant or you walk into a room and you're the only person of colour there, it doesn't bother you because you've put on that mental armor. So I think when you go to a country or a place where that doesn't apply anymore, that allows you to drop that armor and to just relax and just feel and just be accepted. Of course, it may change when you open your mouth and your accent comes out differently, but for those moments, you belong. The biggest metaphor is the title, From Pasta to Pigfoot, because it's, well, first off, there's food in the book. Somebody once asked, is the book about food? And my publisher sitting next to me went, no it isn't, but it is delicious. So I like that, and I'm hanging on to that one. There's a lot of food in the book. If you're reading the book and you're hungry, all I can say is you better get some food near you, because there's a lot of food in the book. But the biggest metaphor is about food. Pasta, obviously we associate that with Italy, the West. Pigfoot, hugely popular in Africa and the Caribbean. Not a dish I particularly like. In fact, I hate it. But it was the metaphor, and it was the metaphor for moving geographically. It was the metaphor for developing culturally. It was the metaphor for doing something that's uncomfortable, that's foreign, that isn't to your natural taste, that is different, and trying to understand and appreciate it to the point where it doesn't override the way you feel about yourself anymore, and it becomes something that you can take or leave. So how that works for Faye, I'll leave it to you to read and find out, but that's probably the big metaphor. Yeah.